And now, live from Level 5 Productions on the island of Milleronia, it's The Larry Miller Show. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all of you who don't want more water in a restaurant. Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Larry Miller Show. I'm Larry Miller, but in a way, aren't we all? And boy, oh boy, is it ever beautiful today on Milleronia. And sometimes I fool around with it. That is, of course, I control the weather, and I always make it nice and sunny and just, well, about perfect between, 67 and 72 degrees. And today, though, I just got a feeling. I just went a little wild. And I said to Colonel Jeff, hey, how about some rain? How about some rain right now here on Milleronia? And, Colonel Jeff is always with the party. He's always looking to do things that are just plain fun. And it struck him the same way, so I went. I can't tell you how I do it, but because I control the weather, and what I do, I'll give you a hint. There are dials and toggle switches and a big lever that I have to pull from one side to the other, like opening the cells in a jail in 1930. But I won't tell you anything more. And, it rained. It rained and then harder and harder and harder. I turned the dial up every time I wanted more rain. And, and then it was so interesting because at a certain point, Colonel Jeff turned to me and said, I think that's about enough. And I said, you know what? I think you're right. So I turned the rain off, and it's just back to gorgeous again here on Milleronia. And, I feel so good. It's, and as always, it's the music that starts it off for me. That's the Herman Wouk Orchestra and the Peggy Lipton Dancers, featuring boy tenor Richard Myers asking the musical question, if I color myself impressed, what color should I use? I say green, Richard. Just plain green. Now, true, I love green. I've said it many times before. All sorts of greens. Green is my color. I love it. I have since I was a little kid. But now the thing is, it struck me, green has had some negative feelings over the centuries, like, I'm green with envy. Or some colors, fall into that. Someone who's seeing red. Oh, boy, that guy is angry. He's seeing red. Well, you know what? I wanted to bring green back to the winner's circle. And that's why I'm glad you brought it up. Good question, Richard. If I color myself impressed, what color should I use? Green, Richard. Green. And I mentioned a couple of folks there in the beginning who are worth talking about. They've just passed away. They passed on. Peggy Lipton, for one. Oh, what a wonderful actress she was. And in movies and in TV many, many times. And was best known probably for her role starring in the Mod Squad. And boy, oh boy, those three cops who were kind of, hippie cops, for lack of a better term. And, boy, she was just great. And every guy from 14 to 114 was in love with her. And why not? She was just so beautiful and really had such a fragile look in a way. She was a terrific actress and could do anything. But I remember someone in one of the obituaries wrote about her that she's like a canary with a broken wing. And I thought, and Colonel Jeff thought, well, that's a beautiful phrase. That's a nice way to put it. And boy, oh boy, everyone who knew her loved her. And I can tell you right here, two guys who themselves were 14 or 15 years old were part of the group that just loved her on TV, loved seeing her and thought, holy mackerel, she sure is pretty. And the great Doris Day just passed away too. Folks, others have said this already, but I'd like to be one of them that if there is someone, a real star, a great movie star, what talent. And she was a big band singer, by the way, before she got into acting. And an amazing talent. And she brought it all together in so many ways and was a big animal rights activist. But boy, oh boy, in movies, I think every girl I knew or spoke to, whether I was a kid or just wrote now, all the women who wrote things said, every part she played, I wanted to be that woman. And I can see that. Boy, every time I looked at her, I thought, well, holy mackerel, she's beautiful, but in such a girl next door way. Gorgeous and talented. Whew. Rest in peace, Doris. We still all love you. I.M. Pei just died. He was around 97, I think. One of the greatest architects we've ever seen. And just a huge success. And people all thought he was brilliant. And I'm not sure of some of the things he's done. I know he designed and built the big glass pyramid in front of the Louvre in Paris. And to be honest, I'm not crazy about that. I never quite got the point when he did it, but he did, and everyone else did. And, well, he's gone now, but what a career. And, talk about talent, the great Herman Wouk. Herman Wouk from New York, and what an author, what a writer. Wrote many, many things and different kinds of things, but really primarily as a novelist. And, so many great books. And one of which I remember as Marjorie Morningstar. And also, he was someone who changed the way stories were told in America. He, if you really read Herman Wouk and you love him, and you will, he didn't have the kind of movement or introspection of, say Tolstoy or someone like that, but you didn't need it. He spoke to you, and he spoke about people he knew and people he created, and it was very moving. And he was someone else. I believe he lived to be 102. So in any case, for all those folks, thank you, God bless you, and good luck in the next step. And by Amazon. That's right, Amazon. Still one of my favorite companies in the world, not just because they send us money, by the way, not just because they're a sponsor of the show, not just because they send a percentage of everything you buy from them. Well, actually, those are good reasons right there. Actually, that's a terrific reason. But Amazon has everything. Whatever you want, go to Amazon. You can get anything in the world from Amazon, except, of course, an actual Amazon. But boy, Amazon is great. What you want to do is you can get there any way you want, on your computer, on your iPhone, anything at all. But let us get you there. That's the easiest way and the best way. Go to our website. That's LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the mountain? Tom Mix. Steerike! And that was his happiest day, by the way. You know what? We have one. Go to our website. We have a banner that says Amazon on it. You click our banner, and don't worry about it. We'll get you there. Click our banner and, go back to your easy chair and, tip it way back. You could have yourself a drink or a sandwich, but you know what? Just take a nap. Put a magazine over your face and grab some winks. Wow. But Amazon does it. Thank you, Amazon, and keep going. We will too. And that brings me to a great question I would like to ask all of you out there, and here it is. Who won Larry Miller's money? I'm sorry, I was wondering how long Colonel Jeff was going to let that run. Because I love that song. I've grown to really love it. And he found it. And if you have to ask what it has to do with the contest, well, number one, I don't know, but it works for me. It worked for Colonel Jeff. And, oh, boy, if I had maracas and one of those big crazy hats, one of those big Mexican hats, I would put it on for that music. Well, no, I wouldn't, but I like the music anyway. So, you know what, though? The contest is over and it's time to tell you who the winner was. And it's important to add, by the way, that the votes and the guesses were all tabulated by accounting firm of Dungmeister and Dungmeister. Many people joined in, many of you, and boy, many of you were very close. I mean, really close. And by the way, our lawyers made it clear that the second and third place folks wouldn't get any money, but a very firm tip of the hat and a crisp handshake. And some people we really like, Brendan Cahoon, Bill Levinson, and a good friend of the show, Lee Bruns, who's been a boy tenor several times. These fellas and many of you were very close, but no cigar. The actual total was... well, probably not enough to buy a nice new snare drum for that fella, but the actual total was $20.42. And the winning guess of $21.81 goes to Ricky the Great Tornado Maris. And, boy, I don't know why I expected music or drums there or anything. And boy, is that band with the thick guitars going to be upset when they realize they were playing to the crowd when that guy hit a homer. Oh, they missed it. But you know what, though? Good guess, Ricky. Ricky the Great Tornado Maris. And he wins that money, and we have all his info, and we're going to be sending it out to him. And pronto, I guess. That means fast. So you know what? We'll do other things like that. Things that, involve money. I guess that's the best way to put it. Winning some money for you. Some of my money. Some of Colonel Jeff's money. He just shook his head and said, But, well, there'll be somebody's money in it. That's for sure. And thanks for playing it this time, folks. And that brings me to my favorite part of the show, the joke of the week. And this was sent in by a fan, Biff La Tourette. And, this is a good one, too. In a nice home in the suburbs, a father is putting his little daughter to bed at night, and he tells her a story, and she likes it, and then he says, okay, it's time for prayers, and she says her prayers, and he hears her as she's saying, right in the prayer, she also says, and bless mommy, and bless daddy, and bless grandma, and goodbye grandpa. And her father says, well, that's kind of an interesting thing to put in the prayer. And she just smiles and shrugs. Folks, the very next day, Grandpa dies. And everyone is, thrown by that. And the father, too. And that night, they do again. He's reading her story, and then she says her prayers again. And then she says, and bless mommy, and bless daddy, and goodbye, grandma. And again, the father is, all right. And sure enough, the next day, grandma dies. And now that this is not okay. It's a little wild. And Well, the third night there, you know what she does during the prayers, the same place. She said, she says, well, and bless Mommy and goodbye, Daddy. And he's shocked, and he said he goes to work the next day. He's a little thrown and thought, well, I don't want something like this to happen to me, not right now. And I just, and he realizes, he gets this thought, if I just hang on till midnight tonight, till the end of this day, if I can just make it through there, and I don't even have to go home, I can stay here, I'll stay at work, I'll lock all the doors, and just, if I make it through till midnight, I'll be all right, I'll be fine, I won't have to worry. And sure enough, he does. He gets to midnight, and he's fine. And, well, you know what? He goes home now, and he walks in, and his wife says to him, where were you all day? And he said, you know what? I had a lot of work to do, and I decided to stay at the office and just, I don't even want to go into the details. It was the worst day of my life. And she says, wow, wait a minute, so happens I had the worst day of my life, too. I was golfing, and suddenly, in the middle of the 10th hole, my golf pro died. Colonel Chapman, I like that one. It turns out, so I guess that's her daddy. Anyway, folks, I hope you like that one. We did here, and as always, if you like it, keep them alive. Tell that joke to your family and friends and anyone you like. And that brings me to my second favorite part of the show, the Poetry Corner. I love those string players. And this poem is written by the great Thomas Hardy, a British poet who lived from 1840 to 1928. His father was a stonemason and a violinist, which is an interesting combination, I think. And Hardy wrote both poetry and novels, and he was very well known and very admired. And here's one of the reasons why. It's called A Thunderstorm in Town, poem by Thomas Hardy. She wore a terracotta dress, and we stayed because of the pelting storm within the hansom's dry recess. Though the horse had stopped, yea, motionless, we sat on, snug and warm. Then the downpour ceased, to my sharp sad pain, and the glass that had screamed our forms before flew up, and out she sprang to her door. I should have kissed her if the rain had lasted a minute more. Isn't that nice? And Thomas Hardy's great anyway, a great man with words. But what an interesting image of, well, it's a storm and they're weathering it, and, well, he's on a date, this fella, and it rains for quite a while, and they sat motionless, I like that, snug and warm, they were okay in the hansom cab, and then it ceases, and the only thing he's thinking of, you know what? How many dates has that happened on? No matter what the era is, for you and me and everyone, well, you know what? You just wait on that kiss a little too long. And all you think about once she trots away and waves and goes into her house there is, I guess I should have made another move a little sooner. Well, yes, you should have. And that brings me to my third favorite part of the show, MMM, the Magic Movie Moment. Well, this is a great movie, folks, and great in every way, in script and directing and cast. In the heat of the night, from 1967, directed by Norman Jewison, starring Sidney Poitier, Rod Steiger, Warren Oates, Lee Grant, Larry Gates, William Shallert, B. Richards. That cast cannot be beaten, and there's so many others. And, well, it takes place in the deep part of the South and in Mississippi. And there's a fellow who was building a new building for a new business, and he came from the North, and his wife was Lee Grant. And then one night, he's killed. He's murdered. He was taking a stroll, and that was it. And the chief of police there, not a big police force, it's a small southern town, but the chief of police is played by Rod Steiger, Chief Gillespie. Oh, is he good. And he's visited by Virgil Tibbs, Mr. Tibbs. And he's sent down by his police department in Philadelphia to help out because he's the top of the line there. Virgil Tibbs is the greatest detective they have in murders. And one afternoon, as they get to know each other, by the way, they don't get along very well at all. The chief of police doesn't like Virgil Tibbs, and Virgil Tibbs doesn't like the chief of police, but they begin to respect each other. And the chief really is impressed by how smart and specific, what a good policeman, what a good cop Virgil Tibbs is, Detective Tibbs. And Detective Tibbs is also very impressed by how brave and in control Chief Gillespie is. And as they're really starting to get to know each other more and more, they visit Mr. Endicott one afternoon. And, boy, this guy was great, played by Larry Gates. And he's at, well, his mansion. He owns everything in the town and the whole area and the county. He's the richest man in the world there. And he didn't like that new building being built, and he didn't like that new building and business coming. And, well, if anyone had a motive to hate the guy who was doing it, it's this Endicott. And Rod Steiger tries to tell Tibbs as they approach that, they park there, well, the police car, and they're walking up there. You have to take it easy here with this guy. This guy is the guy. He's the man. And I don't like him right off the bat, and neither will you. He is someone who is, he plays the acting. It's written so well, and he acts it so well. This guy, I don't like this guy at all. He's in charge of something, and in a way no one wants to see anymore. Not you, not me, not anyone. And they're in his hothouse, the flower house, where he grows, well, everything, orchids, roses, all these things. And he's got his little flower guy apron on. And one of these servants comes with a tray for lemonade for everybody. But boy, oh boy, every word that's said, you realize this guy does not mean well. And even though he smiles, it's never a smile that reaches the eyes. It's something worse than that. And at one point, he doesn't like what Sidney Poitier is saying. He doesn't like what Virgil Tibbs is saying, and he slaps him in the face right in the middle of the day, in the middle of this flower hut. It's not a hut, it's far bigger than that. And he slaps him, and folks, within a tenth of a second, there's no pause, Tibbs slaps him right back. Except a little harder, even just crack. And he's astonished and shattered. No one has ever hit him. And Rod Steiger, as the chief, is also astonished because he knows no one has ever done that to Mr. Endicott. And here, well, it happened this day. No one ever did it to him until today, until it came from Detective Virgil Tibbs. And that guy is, you really see looks on his face come in of, this is not a good man. And as they walk out, Steiger and Poitier walk out back to the police car, because the guy had just said to them, "Would have been a day, Chief, when the chief of police would have killed this man right now, right in front of me, for doing that. And what are you going to do?" And it's great. Steiger actually says, "I don't know." Because he didn't know. He was reacting. He was taking that in from a man he's really respecting, Detective Tibbs, and against a man he doesn't like at all, because no one likes him. Folks, it's a great movie. And, what a cast. And if you haven't seen it, see it. Please see it. In the Heat of the Night from 1967. Directed by Norman Jewison. And, what a cast. Sidney Poitier, Rod Steiger, Warren Oates, Lee Grant, Larry Gates, and I was looking forward to mentioning just his name there. Oh, what a great cast. But Larry Gates was the one who played Mr. Endicott. And, boy, one of these days, you want to run into that guy and say, "Get a load of you. You really squeezed that guy like a lemon." He sure did, folks. And I had, last night, you know what? A good reason to love. My wife said to me, "Hey, we're going out with Helen tonight." That's her sister. And Helen's great. I've always loved Helen, and Helen is a good husband and a great kid. And Helen drove up to pick us up here at our place. And this is on the mainland, by the way. And my wife said to me, "You know what? Helen's coming up. She's going to pick us up." And it was for an early dinner. She was going to pick us up about 5:15. That's right. And we're going to meet 3 friends of hers at an Italian restaurant, 3 or 4 towns away from here, down the big boulevard. And I'm the kind of guy, first of all, I know I'm a little cranky sometimes. I know that, but I didn't say, "Why do we have to go?" Because Helen's great. I love her. And, my wife's looking forward to this anyway. So I did what every good husband is. I just said, "What?" No, I didn't say that at all. I said, "Of course, that'll be great." And so the two of them were sitting in the front of Helen's car when she picked us up. And I sat in the back, which I'm happy to do, by the way. Of course. Good Lord. And they were chatting back and forth, yakking on this and that, and politics and, work and family and this and that. And, but they're 2 sisters who love each other and are very strong women. And all I want is someone to drive safely. I don't know about you, but I want to say, look, God bless you both. Why don't you, if we want, go a little early and you two sit in the bar, have a cocktail and chat and yell and do all these things even before the dinner. That's fine with me. But for now, just drive. And I didn't say anything, but that's what I'm thinking and feeling. And my wife says, "No, don't stay here. Get in the left lane of this. It's all on a boulevard. This is not a highway." And then Helen said, "But I like it here. I like it on this one. I'll tell you, because in this." And they argue about that. And what I'm thinking is, please, stop talking. Stop talking. So just drive safely. Slow down. But that's what it's like being a crank. And we get into this place a few towns away, and you always got to say, "Good for you." Helen, she got us there just fine. And she turned around on one of the blocks just after the restaurant and pulled up in front and just parallel parked in front. Did a great job in front of this place. And we walked in there, and I needed 10 seconds just after I got out of the car to, I don't know how you are, but I needed to just breathe in, breathe out, in through the nose, out through the mouth, really stretch, get the back muscles just not annoyed anymore of this and that. And I'm telling you, this is not their fault. It's my fault. I could have driven my car, by the way, right behind them. That would have been fine with me. And just gone bowling instead. I don't care. But we walked in the restaurant there, and they gave us a table, and I said, oh, pardon me, I'll be right back. I went to the washroom in the back of the place and washed up and came back up, tucked in, did all the right things, and came back out again. And then these folks had gotten there, and I said, oh, how do you like that? I hadn't met them. It was three of them. It was a nice couple, and they'd been married for a while, and they have a bunch of kids, and then one of their friends joined us too, and he got there a little late. Bob, he's a good guy too, and they were all willing to talk. And by the way, it's the kind of place, frankly, where it was noisy enough, and there were things blowing enough, and vents doing this and that I really couldn't even hear any of them speak as they were talking and gabbing about this and that. And that was fine with me. Again, I don't know who you are, but what a bonus that was. I could just watch whoever was speaking. If the person smiled, I would smile. And I thought that was just fine, good enough. And then my wife was telling a story, and she was great. She's a great storyteller, and she'd look at me and smile, and I'd smile right back. And then I'd look at the rest of the table smiling. And that was a big, as I said, it's like a hidden treasure. I don't have to listen. I like these are great folks. But I didn't have to listen, so I was thrilled. And, well, folks, as the meal starts getting served, here's the thing. There was a busboy, and he wasn't a kid. This was a busboy in his 30s or 40s, and he had the busboy outfit on, and he kept coming over and filling our water glasses. And as I'm, just trying to smile and listen to people I can't hear, and I would just say to him, then the first time he came over, he reached for my glass, and I just said, I looked at him, I said, no, thank you. And he was so puzzled by that, it flipped him out, actually. I don't know why he was so invested in it, but he looked at me, what? Didn't say words, but what? And I said, no, thank you. Just underlined it and spoke it a little more slowly. And very unwillingly, he finally turned and walked away. This guy doesn't want my water. And I'm telling you, folks, about every 6 minutes, he came back to look around, and he didn't bother anyone else. He'd come back to me and just kind of whip his hand out, reach down and pick up my water glass to fill it. And there was plenty in there. It's more than half. And I said to him again, no, thank you. And I just motioned to him. I didn't touch him. I motioned. Put the glass down. Put the glass down. And he looked at me again, didn't walk away. Couldn't believe it. And I said again, no, thank you. And now I'm starting to get a little louder with it, frankly. I didn't want more water. And I did something about this guy was just a little creepy. And I'm telling you, every 5-6 minutes, again, come by. And I would look at him, and our eyes met each time, and I would say, no, thank you. No, thank you. And that'd be enough for me. It'd be enough for you, wouldn't it? He couldn't buy it. He was flipping out. This is his role, not just his job, to give more water. And I didn't want this man doesn't want more water. But I didn't know. I didn't. And when he'd leave, then I took a sip. It's just, this guy. And folk again and again and again came back. And now after the 11th time, I'm telling you, in all honesty, I just started saying the word no. With nothing else. Nothing else seemed to be working. And as he'd reach over, I would just look at him and say, no. And this is something where people in the rest of the restaurant are starting to turn around and look at you. Just, no. What is this guy saying no for? Again and again. And it took me 3 no's with each visit. No. And we got through the rest of the meal, and it was, we'd been there since about 5:30. And so it was still, of course, light out. Now it's about 7:15. That's a long meal. And I didn't need any more of this. I didn't want a big dish of something, of anything. It's just enough. And I really wanted to just leave. I want to go home. Let's go home. But I didn't say that because my wife's having a great time and she's with people who, listen to her, and she's really interesting, and she's telling the story, and Bob is listening too, and the others are listening, and her sister is, and I still don't hear them, so I'm thrilled. And again, the same thing with the water. No. And the waiter now it's getting hot. The last hour of the meal in the restaurant, it was hot. And I mean, like solitary in a prison where it's underground. And, you're going to spend a month in the hot box. This was the hot box. And my wife is fanning herself with the menu. And the other lady is too, and the other fellas. I called the waiter over. I would pick my finger up and hold it up and motion, and he came right over. The water boy could have done the same thing just like that, by the way, but that's not the way he wanted it. But the waiter would come over, and I'd say, do me a favor. Would you turn on the air conditioning, please? Turn it on high. And he said, yes, absolutely. And he'd walk away and turn it on, and you'd hear it go on, then click, click, and, you could feel it. Started to blow for 3 minutes. And then he'd turn it off again. So my wife and the other lady could stop fanning themselves with the menus for 3 minutes. And then it'd go off again and become, like a boiler room. And they go back to fanning themselves. And 3 times I asked him to, please turn it back on. He said, well, yes, I will. And other people think it's too hot and too cold when it comes on, and they want it warmer. Warmer? But what are you talking about? This is like the Philippines. And he said, yes, and he'd turn it back on again for 3 minutes. And then the same thing, back to the fanning. And at this point, I was, I just want to, okay, is it time? Can we go? Now it's 7:30, and it's, 7:30, 20 to 8, which is starting to, obviously it's getting dark. And I don't want to drive home in the dark, with them, arguing in the front about, no, get in the left lane, not the left lane, not now, not this time of day. And, but at one point my wife just glanced at my watch and said, you know what? We should head home. It's time to leave. And for once in my life, I did something that wasn't stupid. Instead of just jumping on it going, yes, now, let's go. I just looked at her and smiled and said, oh, maybe you're right. And then glanced at my watch and said, you know what? Maybe you're right. Yes, let's leave. And I paid the bill and left, of course, a gigantic tip. I don't know why. I didn't have a good time, but you're supposed to, and I did. And then finally we got out. I remember the other fellow, the nice fellow Bob, had just gotten another glass of wine delivered, and where they pour it in the glass. I don't mean from a bottle, but there's like a little sifter server thing that the waiter has filled up. Well, back at the filling station. And then he comes over and pours that in. I saw that happen and pouring in as I just put the check down. It was all settled, and I thought, I hope this guy can chug that wine, because otherwise he's going to be wearing it, because I need to get out now. Well, he actually heard that thought, and he was a good fella. I liked him. But he drank that pretty quickly, and I then smiled back at my wife, and I said, all righty, shall we? And shall we? Shall we is a great thing to say at certain moments, by the way. This is one of them. All right, shall we? Shall we? And she said, yeah, and smiled, and we headed out, shook hands, in motion. I mean, I don't know about you again. I'm ready to go. So I was serious and sincere when I said, wonderful to meet you. Great to meet you. And they all said, let's do this again sometime. And I said, you've got a deal. Anytime. As I was leaving. And we got outside, and it was still light out enough. And we got our car, which we parked in front, remember. And Helen's great anyway, and so is my wife. And so they got in the front again, and I got in the back again, which was fine, and buckled up, and okay, here we go. And I was terrified the whole drive, because there was a lot of, no, this lane, no, I don't like this lane, I like the other one. And a lot of the, it looked like I should have been shooting out the back window. That's how fast I thought we were going. And then we got home, and thank God, fine, everything's fine. And Helen came in to wash up, use the restroom, and that's at that point in the evening. I just went and washed up into our bedroom, washed up, took the fancy clothes off, and I call anything fancy clothes which aren't gym shorts. I don't know about you. And then I put some gym shorts on, but not right away. I was just in the boxer shorts. And took the socks. I threw everything in the hamper and just gargled with some mouthwash and washed and face and hands. Okay. And, that's when my wife, she called in from the living room. Helen's leaving. Come say goodbye. And I said, okay, I'll be right there. Instead of, what? But I did. And, she gave me a nice kiss. Even though I was saying, no, I have a cold, I don't want to get, oh, that's okay. Mm-hmm. And she is great. I really do care for her. And she headed home, and she made it safely, and that's fine. But the whole point is, folks, you know what? Even on a night that goes well, I don't know when men stopped doing things like going to clubs, like the Buffalo Club. And there are a lot of fine places. I've worked there. I've done shows there. And there are a lot of good places around. Because I think one of the reasons men sometimes just like to be alone, and women sometimes just like to be alone, well, let's try that sometime, That's sure I want to get together and go out to dinner with everyone there. But, boy, I'll tell you what, and on that ride home, the only thing in my head, folks, the only thing I could think of was, I'm so thirsty now. I wish I could have had some water. And it's good to feel a little lunkheaded like that and say that now. That's all I wanted was that guy with the water. Well, but it's good to end the night on a smile. Good luck to him. Good luck to the waiter. Good luck to the people we met. And, of course, to the people I care about, my wife and her sister. And you know what, folks? I know that, and you know that, because we know the same things. Homer is Homer, and Pluto is a planet. So remember, folks, as always, if you walked out of bed today and had a job to go to and a home to come back to, and someone there who cares about you, folks, the game's over and you've won. Remember that. And, oh, heck, take the water. We'll see you here next time.